Welcome to Introduction to Sociology. I am Kyle Green. I'm the professor or the instructor of the course. And in this video, I'm just going to give you an explanation of what we are going to be doing this semester, what type of assignments you're going to have, a bit of an overview of the syllabus. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself so you know who I am. You're actually not going to be seeing a lot of me this semester. Most of my videos will just be my voice recorded over slides that explain the content that we're going through. However, maybe you see me during office hours, maybe you want to talk about the class, maybe you want to talk about anything else, and I'm going to say this over and over and over again. You can always email me, you can always ask me questions, you can always stop by during office hours to talk. It's a strange thing to take this asynchronous course where it seems like you're just working through material. I want there to be as much a connection as possible. Obviously, there isn't as much as if you were in person. So with that in mind, let's get into what we're going to cover today. And again, the goal, by the end of today, I want you to have a sense of what's happening in the class. Obviously, you won't know what we're going to cover, but you're at least going to be like, yeah, I know I'm taking Introduction to Sociology. These are the things I'm going to be responsible every week. These are the things I'm going to be responsible for by the end of the semester. This is what it's going to take to do well. All right, so let's get into it. 100, Introduction to Sociology. And I'm Kyle Green. You'll be hearing my voice a lot. And hopefully you don't get sick of it. I know that I actually probably would get sick of it if I was hearing myself talk this much. So the plan today, we are going to work through the format of the course. I'm going to work through the syllabus, and I'm going to provide an introduction to who I am, and then I'm going to give you the first in-class writing, which is you providing a brief introduction to who you are to me so I have a sense of who's actually in the class. Now, before we get into the format, I do want to say, and I always like to start off this way, I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about taking this course this semester. Now, I know asynchronous course, everything going on in the world, all the restrictions that you have might be a hard semester to get as excited about as you would be otherwise. But here's the reasons I think you should be excited about this course. First of all, it's your chance to learn about a new discipline. Most high schools do not have a sociology course. You might take an AP psychology course, which overlaps a bit with sociology. You might take social studies. Well, you would take social studies, which draws on sociology, but it probably draws even more on history and geography. So this is your chance to see, here's this new way of thinking about the world, which has a lot of value and gives you the foundation, if you want to major or minor in the discipline, to get a lot of different types of jobs. And I will record a video about that later, because I know a number of you at the end of the semester always say, hey, I like this course, I like these ideas, but I do want to be able to get a job. What can I do? Second thing, sociology improves your critical thinking. This is one of these things that's talked about all the time. Universities, colleges always say by the end of your 4-year degree, you're going to be more of a critical thinker. Well, what does that actually mean? In sociology, you build those skills to ask important questions about how the world works, how things could potentially change, what other alternatives there are, right? What institutions or powers are involved. Those are things that sociology does. You're going to think about a lot of topics you never thought of before. We have a variety of readings. I try to keep the readings short. I try to keep them accessible, but we talk about a lot of stuff you probably haven't thought in depth about before, whether it's spatial segregation and redlining, whether it's, I used to have an article on pigeon racing. I can't remember if I assigned it this semester, whether it's looking at symbolic interaction and studying online dating and social media, whether it's looking at religion, right? These are things that are in your world, but you might not have thought about in an academic way before. It's also better than some of the alternatives. That I'm confident about. I'm not going to say Introduction to Sociology is the best course you're ever going to take, but I am 100% confident that it's not going to be the worst course you'll ever take. So at least I can say that. You're going to have a chance to read through and not talk in the traditional sense about a bunch of good readings, but think through it and work through it with me as well. I also am going to assign some videos, which I think are good. The other thing is I try to keep this course relatively cheap, and you'll see that with the books that you had to buy. The other thing that I can say is I promise to adapt with you, meaning this is a strange semester again, right? Hopefully this is the last of the abnormal ones that started last spring into this fall and into this spring. We're doing the best that we can. If you communicate with me, I'm willing to try to make things work for you. So I promise to do that. I think that's very important at this time. In terms of the format, this is asynchronous, meaning that we do not meet on a weekly basis through some sort of Zoom or Microsoft Teams session. There is nothing that you have to sign in. I'm actually never going to see you unless we talk during office hours, right? So it's a completely asynchronous course. Every week, you will have things that I release. I'm going to open up a folder. It will show what you have to do that week. It's going to follow what is in the syllabus. You can choose to do it at your own pace. Maybe you decide every Monday you just do all the stuff you need to do for Intro to Sociology and you're done for the week. Maybe you're someone who waits until Friday at 7 p.m. to start and you turn it in right before that midnight deadline. That's up to you. So it does put more pressure onto you to be independently motivated to complete the work, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. So it's both good and bad. It's easy to forget about, but you have a lot of flexibility. I do release the weeks one at a time because I don't want people to be overwhelmed or lose track. However, if a number of you email me and say, hey, we would love if you could start getting that content out earlier so I can try to finish this whole Intro to Sociology thing a week or two early, I can try to do that. So I'm recording the new material every week, but if you want to try to zoom ahead so you can get this course done, say in 10 weeks, I'm actually completely fine with that if you think that's helpful. So email me your opinion. I'm happy to listen. All right, let's get into the syllabus. Now, I do encourage you to read the syllabus on your own. I think it's important. I'm not going to cover every detail because it will simply take too long and it will get kind of boring. This is where all the information about how the course is going to work is contained, but I do want to hit a few main points. So let's get into that. So, like I said, it's important to read through this on your own, but I'm going to go through and hit some of the main points just so you know where things are located in the syllabus and also just to make sure that it actually makes sense. Sometimes when I read this out loud, I can explain it better than what you see in front of you. So read the first part. This talks about what we're actually trying to do this semester. I outline the goals, what I expect from you. This is not a course based on memorization. And as you'll see in the assignments, that's not what I'm trying to encourage. It's a course where I'm trying to make you think, and I'm trying to make you apply sociological ideas to your own experiences and the things that you've encountered in the world. I start out every syllabus with a few pictures that I think introduce the themes that we're going to be covering this semester. Not every theme, but just get us thinking about the type of stuff you do. Introduction to Sociology is hard because I could have a picture of pretty much anything. You could study everything from a sociological perspective. But I chose these pictures this semester. So we could see some of the ideas that are generated from these photos. And if we were in class, I'd have us all sit around and I'd go around and ask you, what type of sociological ideas come up. But we could just start at the top left, right? Here you can see something interesting going on. Something that we take as being natural and we almost take for granted. We have a college hockey game occurring. The puck is about to be dropped, but who's actually there doing it? We have military, right? You have these representatives of the military with doing the puck drop. This is probably a game honoring people for their service. But again, we take this as normal. The fact that military show up an event, not because there was a bomb threat, not because there's danger, but rather this is this thing we see as combined. Sport, military, and patriotism. Why are those so tightly linked together? Again, in sociology, we're not trying to say whether this is necessarily a good or bad thing, but rather we're saying, well, what's actually going on here? What does this tell us about society? Why is it that before a sporting event in middle school, in high school, definitely at the Super Bowl, you have someone sing the national anthem and everyone stands up, right? Or it becomes a place of protest when people choose not to stand up and choose to kneel. And how do we read them choosing to kneel, right? Why is it before a class we don't have the national anthem? Why is it before most concerts you don't have the national anthem? This is raising important sociological questions. Next thing to the right, this is an advertisement from 1883. The advertisement is for cocaine. And who are they advertising it to? This is for children, saying, hey, if your child has some toothache, or if you have a toothache as an adult, just stop by and get some cocaine. Now, when you see this, you probably think this is kind of bizarre. If I were in front of a classroom and I said, hey, I don't actually have children, but say, hey, my kid Tony has a toothache. Any of you know a good place to get cocaine before I go home? You would think that I was crazy. You might call Child Protective Services on me, right? Even though cocaine actually would work in that way. That's why it used to be used in that manner. So what this is pointing out is, what do we consider appropriate? What makes a drug legal or illegal? Who gets to make that decision? What is appropriate of children or not for children? And again, how do we decide? right? So this raises some important questions about health, about drug use, and just about social norms. Bottom left, we've got Mike Tyson, one of the great heavyweight boxers of all time. Doing what he says is actually his favorite pastime or sport. Not boxing, but pigeon racing, right? So pigeon racing used to be a very popular thing that would take place in urban environments across the country. The Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens used to be centers for pigeon racing. Mike Tyson grew up as a pigeon racer. Used to be a place where men came together. It was very exclusionary of women and girls. Men would come together. They'd introduce boys to this practice, and it would be a place of community forming and competition. Again, raising questions about how do we form community, how do we gender spaces that don't need to be gendered, right? There's nothing inherently gendered about raising a pigeon and flying it, but how do we create these spaces? To the next one also raises question about gender. Here we see a person off hunting, and he is bringing back the head of a bear. Now, this is a time in the early 1900s where the president, Teddy Roosevelt, had declared that there needed to be a return of traditional masculinity to the United States, and he created a giant swaths of parkland, of natural forest, and he wanted hunters to actually go out and go into the wild, men, affluent men, and kill animals and bring back their heads as trophies. It was seen as uncouth or lower class to bring the meat as well. That was a sign that you were a working class or poorer person if you hunted to kill an animal to consume. Instead, you were supposed to bring the trophy. Again, raising in very important questions about how do we determine what a gender norm is, right? Why is it more masculine to kill a bear with a rifle and take its head and leave the meat? Why is it considered masculine to even kill an animal? Or for that matter, how do we determine what animals to kill and what animals not to kill? If you came to my house for some reason and I had a trophy of a cow that I had shot, you would think I was a monster, or at least, again, very bizarre, right? How do we make those determinations? What is our relationship between human and animal? How do we determine what is a pet? How do we determine how to treat a pet? That could vary by class. It could vary by your cultural background. It could vary by the region that you grew up, right? All those are sociological things. Final one, we have a picture of an advertisement for a Chanel bag. This bag would cost you $5,000 to purchase if you got a good deal, right? How do we determine why it costs so much? Why is this advertisement for a Chanel bag not even say the name Chanel? Who is the model that they chose? What clothing is she wearing? This will all lead to questions about symbolic interaction, which was one of the main ways of main approaches in sociology, which we'll get to in the future. All right, let's keep going. I know this is going a little long, but I want to make sure that we cover all the details. Key things. If you want to contact me, email me at kgreen@brockport.edu. You can call me pretty much anything, but make sure that you say something at the beginning of the email. So feel free to address me as Kyle. You can call me Professor Green. I don't really like being called Dr. Green, but you can call me that if you want. But call me something. Try to be a little bit formal. It's not just a text message, but email me anytime. I try to respond within 24 hours. If it's the weekend and I'm in Rochester, I will respond. If I'm not in Rochester or I'm not checking my email for some reason that weekend, I might be a little bit slower. But during the weekday, I'll always respond within 24 hours. That's one of the goals I like to hold up, especially in an online course. Office hours, every Tuesday from 9 to noon. I'll be available through Teams. I'll send out a link. I'll post it on the website. If you need to meet at another time, let me know. I'm happy to talk. If Teams doesn't work, we could always talk on the phone. FaceTime's easier. That's possible, but Teams is probably the best. So that's the goal. In terms of required books, you don't have a lot. You've got a book called The Society Pages, Give Methods a Chance, which is a book that I co-authored. Should be very cheap. If you buy it straight from Amazon, I think it's like $12 or $15. And then we've got The Real World and Introduction to Sociology, the 7th edition. I've got more information about this on the website. But basically, you could buy one of 3 versions of this book. I recommend the online one. It's easiest, it's cheapest. You can actually get a bundle where you package the 2 books that are required for this class to the bookstore to make it even cheaper. So I worked with the publisher to make that possible. The key thing is you want to buy this book from a reputable source so you get the online license. You are going to be taking quizzes at the end of every chapter you read from this book. That is going to be a significant portion of this class, of your course grade. So make sure you're able to do that. If you have a problem, let me know. There are a lot of other required readings. There will be documentaries, there'll be podcasts. Those will all be made available through Blackboard. I will record a separate video showing you how to use the Blackboard page. I think a lot of you will find this to be pretty obvious, but I want to make sure that no one is confused about where to find certain things. We're also going to have these videos or lectures that I record as you're listening to now. Those will be made available on Blackboard, and the Blackboard page will link you to a class YouTube page. That's how you'll get these. Other things. All right, in terms of assignments, some things that I want to point out. Not a lot for this class. I'm trying to keep this really simple. There's 4 things that you have to pay attention to. First thing you need to pay attention to are the quizzes. There is not a test in this class. I hate tests. There's only one course that I teach where I use tests. I don't think it's the best way to test if you're actually paying attention. I think it just forces memorization. But you do have quizzes. At the end of every chapter that you read from your book, The Real World: An Introduction to Sociology, you will take a quiz. Those quizzes are due Friday by midnight. It is through the course software. There'll be a link on Blackboard to bring you to it. One of the reasons I chose this textbook is I've heard from other students that they really like the quiz format. It kind of turns it into more of a game. It's a little less dry and boring. I think their questions are pretty good. So that's why we're going with these types of quizzes. So that makes up a significant portion of your grade, right? This is 30% of your grade. This is something that should be pretty easy. And I'll say of this course, I don't want it to be a super hard course. Now, it's not a course that's an automatic A. However, if you do the work, if you try, you're going to do well in this course. The reason people don't do well is if they simply didn't do the reading, or you simply forget to turn in quizzes and in-class exercises. That will drag your grade down. If you do the work, you should do well in this course. All right, second thing, in-class activities. At the end of the week, you will also, not every week, but many weeks, not only do you have to do that quiz, but you have an in-class activity. The in-class activity is going to be based on the supplemental readings or the lecture that I give. It won't be based on the chapter that you read from the book. So really every week you have 2 things going on. You've got the reading from the book, or the reading from the Real World Sociology text, and then you take a quiz. That's one thing that you do. The other thing you do is you check what the in-class activities are. So then you do the supplemental readings, which are related to the same topics as the book, but then you have more of a reflective thing, right? You think about how you can make your own connections. Usually they're short answer questions. It's not multiple choice, and most of them don't have a correct answer. So this is your chance of thinking through the material, showing that you're actually doing that work. The quizzes are going to be more testing. All right, did you do the reading? Do you understand it? The in-class activities, are you willing to think about this stuff? Put some effort into it, then you'll do well. All right, so that's going to be going on through the whole semester. You've got the quizzes from the book, and then you've got the in-class activities based on the supplemental material. Then you have the 2 big assignments. One, you have a making connections assignment. In this, you are going to get to choose to either do a photo essay or a mixtape that you're going to submit. I'm going to record a separate video explaining this concept and the assignment in more detail. This should be fun. I would be excited about doing this type of thing. That's why I give you this assignment. If you put work into it, if you enjoy it, if you attempt to make connections to class, this is something you should do well on. Again, I'll make a separate video. Then you have the sociological autobiography. Final paper for the class. It's only 3 to 4 pages long, but this is where you're going to apply the ideas from class to your own personal experiences, to something that happened in your life, or some idea that reflects to your own experiences in the world. I will record a separate video explaining this as well. But again, this is the key thing. You've got 4 things to keep track of this semester. It's not that much. Every week you've got quizzes and in-class exercises. Most times you have one of both. You never have more than one quiz or more than one in-class exercise. So that's on the syllabus, and I'll be posting in Blackboard. Then you have this Making Connections photo essay, which is due on April 16th. And then you have a sociological autobiography, which is due at the end of the semester. All right, other things that I want to point out. If you have any concerns about your grade, about something you're struggling with, contact me as soon as possible. I'm happy to work with you. As I point out in the syllabus, I don't take late work. So any in-class activity that you don't turn in Friday by midnight, any quiz that you don't turn in, that's too bad. It's a 0. However, if you contact me in advance, I am happy to give you an extension or work with you. And it doesn't have to be something as formal as, I have COVID, or you know, I'm sick and I had to take this time off, or you know, a family member's sick. If any of that stuff happens, of course I'll give you an extension. But it could be a something, you know, going into a week, you say, hey, I have to take extra hours at work. Maybe you have children and your children are out of school. Maybe you've got a bunch of tests coming in your other classes, and you're like, I just don't know if I can do a good job this week. Do you mind if I have a few extra days? If you tell me in advance, the answer is probably going to be yes. And that's true in most areas of the world, right? If you have issues at your job and you tell the manager in advance, they should work with you. If you just don't show up to work and then afterwards email them, too bad. You're not going to get paid for that day. So same thing here. I'm happy to work with you, but just take some responsibility. If there's any sort of special accommodations that you need, if there's anything that's not working, again, talk to me. I'm happy to work with you. Now, the final page of the syllabus. So this is where I actually lay out what you have to do every week. The easiest way to think about it, I think, is to remember about the different responsibilities that you have. You have the book responsibilities, readings for sociology, and then you have the in-class or supplemental responsibilities. So as you look at the syllabus, you'll see what you have to do. First week, from the book. All right, I have no reading from the book. However, I do have to take a quiz, which is about how to use Inquisitive, how to use the quiz system. So this is just making sure that you know how this thing actually works. So have to do that Friday by midnight. From Blackboard, the supplemental stuff. All right, I have a supplemental reading. It's not going to be long. It's going to be on Blackboard, and I'll, again, record a video showing you how that actually works, where you find stuff. And then I have a short podcast. This is the link, but I'm also going to put that on Blackboard. All right, so I have these things to do. And then let's see, what videos do I actually have to watch this week? Well, I've got the welcome video in course format, which you're watching now. And then you're going to see a video lecture that I record on the sociological imagination. This is going to be a two-part video. It's going to be the foundation for everything we do for the rest of the semester. It's also the foundation for the paper that you write at the end of the semester. All right, so check off those boxes. Then you're done for the week. Next week, we're going to talk about culture. So what do I have to do? All right, I've got chapter 3 from the book. Take a quiz after I read chapter 3. I've got a short reading on Blackboard, Horace Mitchell, Body Ritual Among the Nasarima. I've got these 2 short videos that I have to watch, and then I do the in-class writing based on this stuff. All right, so I've got the quiz and I've got the in-class writings. That's how you work through the semester. Now, one of the reasons I'm going to wait, along with I'm producing this content, but one of the reasons I want to wait and start out by working through week by week, you tell me if it's too much work, right? So say at the end of week 3, you're like, you know, I'm enjoying this stuff, I'm putting the time into it, but I'm finding this to be more work than I can handle and keep straight. Let me know, and I'll try to cut as we go forward. So maybe this week I cut one of the readings. I try to keep this pretty manageable. However, I know an asynchronous class can be a little challenging, so just let me know how it's going for you. Also, give me positive feedback. Maybe you get to the end of week 5 and you're like, hey, this is pretty easy to keep on top of. I'm enjoying the format. I'm enjoying the reading. You know, I like the 3 readings we had this week. And just let me know. That's really useful because we don't get that exchange. I don't get to show up to class 10 minutes early and ask how you guys are doing, to ask how the content is going, to ask if you're on top of things. So let me know about that stuff. Back to the presentation outside of the syllabus. The first in-class writing that you have, this should be incredibly easy. You can't get any of this stuff wrong. It's a simple survey that you are going to answer on Blackboard. Basic questions, just so I get a sense of not so much who you are, maybe a few interesting facts about you, but kind of what you're looking for this semester or what you're hoping for. So have you ever taken a sociology course? What was it? What makes a good professor? What makes a bad professor? And feel free to specify for an online setting because that's different than in person. Again, I want this class to actually work for you. Then tell me one thing that will likely not come up in class, your favorite cheese if you have one, do you drink coffee regularly, and one good movie or show that you've recently seen or a song that you've recently heard. You can also say if there's something you'd like to know about me, let me know, and maybe I'll include that in a future video or I'll respond via email. So fill that out. If you do that, automatic 100% on the first in-class writing of the semester. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am originally from Central New York. Otsego County, a small town known as Gilbertsville, 300 people. I grew up outside that town, so pretty rural, small town area. I went to SUNY Geneseo, which would be, let's see, that'll be over here. I went to SUNY Geneseo for my undergrad, and I majored in philosophy and geography. I actually only took one sociology class. I didn't really know what sociology was. I didn't care about it. Then I went off to grad school. I got my master's in geography at the University of Minnesota. So this is in Minneapolis. This is the state of Minnesota. Got my master's in geography. And then I switched over and got my PhD, my doctoral degree in sociology. What else? Oh yeah, here's some pictures of some of the things that I do with my time, because again, we don't see each other in person. So have some animals. Used to help keep bees. Like to cook. I give presentations at different places. Let's give a presentation at SUNY Oswego. And right before COVID hit, I went to the Museum of Play for the first time, which was pretty cool. The Strong Museum of Play in Rochester. I live in Rochester. In terms of my research, and I would say you should know who your professors are. Who are these people telling you stuff? Who are these people assessing you? You want them to actually know the material that they're providing. So always feel free or empowered to ask a professor, hey, what do you do research on? What interested you? That's a good way to get to know them and show that you're not just like a passive consumer. So I've done research and published on a number of different topics. The first paper that I ever worked on at the master's level was looking at N1 Basketball. N1 Basketball was this company that tried to kind of market and capture an urban aesthetic. So in a sense, they were selling basketball mixtapes, so people playing basketball in streets in different famous courts around different cities in the country, and they were overlaying it with a rap soundtrack. They would mix in footage of the players going to the barbershop or going to their local food place. In a sense, they were trying to commodify and sell blackness, right? They were saying, we are going to make sure we capture something here, this essence, and we are going to sell it to the general public. So my first paper was examining that marketing strategy. My dissertation was on the growth of mixed martial arts in the United States. So while I was in Minneapolis, for 5 years, I trained at local MMA gyms, competed in some grappling tournaments, competed in some striking competitions. And what I was trying to figure out is, what is the appeal of this thing, right? Why is that people spend their money and time going after work during their lunch hour, rolling on the ground with other people, sweating on each other, getting hurt, bleeding, getting injured, right? Like, what is the allure of this, and what can that teach us about modern society? I've also written about how Super Bowl commercials sell certain ideas about gender, right? So looking at, in 2010, there was a series of Super Bowl commercials that really focused on this idea of the crisis of masculinity, with the solution of buying traditional things that men should own. That was the idea they were trying to push forward. And then recently, I've been writing about sports and politics. So thinking about the NBA and the WNBA, what does a position as an athlete allow you to say? What does it limit? How does it also limit you, right? So we saw some very powerful and, in a sense, extreme examples happening over the past few months. We saw a WNBA team help determine who won the election in the state Senate in Georgia, right? And they actually were going against the person who owned the team. The owner of the team was running for the Senate. The team itself endorsed her rival, right? That's a pretty crazy incident, and they helped shape really the future of the country. So what is it that you're able to do as an athlete in a space that we've long celebrated as being outside of politics? But as we know, we do see politics in sports. So what does that mean? I host and run 2 podcasts. So one called Give Theory a Chance, which I look at trying to make sociological theory more accessible, and then another called Give Methods a Chance. The second podcast, Give Methods a Chance, as you may make this connection, was the basis for the book that I wrote, right? So the book that you purchased, the book that you're holding, is us turning that podcast, so Sarah Laugesen and I, my co-host, turning that podcast into a book that we try to have provide an accessible introduction to sociological research. All right, that is all that I have for the introduction. I'm excited about the semester. I hope that you enjoy it. I want you to communicate the ways that you are enjoying it, or also the ways you're not enjoying it. If you have any questions, again, I'll repeat this over and over and over. Email me, stop by office hours, let me know what I can do. And that is it.